I don't think I can do it now that I've started. Quality selection disabled while live. Well, today we're going to be in 720 instead of 1080. This is why I need a producer, so that when I go to a potty break 10 minutes before going on the air, this is already ready to go. The other thing I don't like about Instagram is that it's supposedly, like I just got a note that we're talking about talking, but I have to manually start it after I've started everything else. So whatever. We're live. We're ready. Now we're going. And I'm kind of also, I've rearranged some things on the desktop again. Whatever. We're doing this. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about some hypocrisy that is happening throughout the right. We're going to start right here in Tampa, well, in Florida, because that's where goofball is. Oh, I love that. There he is. This is coming to us from the Young Turks. They saw a clip that noticeably, I don't know, it's funny. I mean, that's, I guess, the best way to say it. Watch what this guy says. And for those of you that are here in Florida, he ran for re-election. Ron DeSantis, I call DeSantos because, like George Santos, he lies about his, background, who he is, and he just lies. That's all. He just lies. And so we're going to show you one right here.
The people that want to enforce orthodoxy and want to stifle dissent, they only do that because they know their ideas cannot stand scrutiny. They know that if people are able to speak their mind, that people will reject these phony narratives that they're always trying to shove down our throats.
Oh, I love.
Yeah, I love too. Wow. Has he forgotten anything from his campaign compared to what he actually did? Like anything? Keep Florida free is how he ran in, I think it was 22 for re-election. And meanwhile, he was already by that point and continues to ban books. This past June was awesome. Here's what he did then. Every year, since I've known about the bridge, they've lit up the Bay Bridge, which connects St. Petersburg, Florida, to Bradenton. It's about a 5-mile long bridge. And quite frankly, is a beautiful structure. And every June for Pride, the Department of Transportation, or whoever it is that manages such a structure and other bridges throughout the entire state of Florida, are colored in floodlights of a rainbow mixture, meaning that the bridge itself looks like a rainbow. And if you're wondering why they do that for June, June is Pride Month. The LGBT community has the bulk of their parades, festivals, celebrations on the fact that we have pride, because most of you know I'm also gay. We have pride and celebrate the fact that you, presuming you, the listener or viewer, are straight, to celebrate the fact that you don't have to, that you're not persecuted like this. This year, he prohibited, with no reason, and he can do this because, after all, he's free. He can do this because he wanted to promote a summer of liberty. Keep in mind, the very next month is the 4th of July. And the whole red, white, and blue option was very much available for that month. People say about military veterans, we need to have an entire month for veterans. Have you seen the attitude that we, as a country, take towards us? And I'm often included by others, not because of military service, but because of 21 years in the Secret Service. I've missed my share of Christmases too. I've been in war zones. I've received hazard pay for doing my job, protecting this goofball's right to be an asshole. And so now the thing is, there are two referendums coming to us on Election Day. One is about pot, which we're going to talk about later. I don't think we're going to get to that today. The other is about abortion. There is a referendum prohibiting the Florida legislature from enacting any abortion restrictions. I agree with some of these state officials. That is too broad. That ain't going to fly. But here's what's happening in the free state of Florida. Here's from the Associated Press. You should probably sit down. You should probably park your car, because that's the face you have to look at, for one, if you're watching the video. But you can tell that these are actually very contentious. That round table that he was sitting at, in these 5 photos here from the AP article. The first one is a demonstrator, probably likely outside of a all women's health center in Clearwater. It's an abortion clinic, call it what it is, among other services. The next one was a rally of women rallying to they're standing at a what we would call a rope line. It's a bike rack covered with drape. So that's probably an event for Kamala Harris. Well, it says JoeBiden.com. So there you go. April of this year, he would have still been the presumptive nominee. So there we go. And that was in Tampa as well. Hillsborough Community College in Tampa. The remaining 3 photos that you just saw me scroll through were of the Santos. This amendment is guaranteeing, and it would be amendment to the Florida Constitution. So it is guaranteeing that a woman's right to choose is protected. A woman's right to choose is not a requirement to take part. In other words, if a woman has a pregnancy that is, for whatever reason, unsafe or unwanted, she has the option to make a decision about continuing to carry that potential eventual child. No, it's not a baby when it's still just a zygote which is a technical term for a fertilized egg. And here he is saying that he's keeping Florida free while all he does is implement restrictions. I still don't know what this one is, but I was told by somebody who is a local barrel sucker, gun carrier within the state of Florida. Within the past year, he signed into law an open carry law that allows Florida residents to carry a gun without concealing it, which is tactically a dumb thing to do. If I'm carrying a gun for purposes of self-defense, I don't want the other guy to know I got that, because now he knows what I'm going to do. No, it's not necessarily going to scare away a bad guy. And in fact, knowing that you're armed might attract said bad guy or girl. I'm all about equality. So he signs this bill into law allowing citizens to open carry, not telling them, and again, I have to fact check this myself, so there's not going to be anything in the show notes, which, by the way, are always available at yergs.com. But so says this neighbor of mine who is very gun savvy, that the bill actually implemented restrictions on weapons that you can carry that were not in place prior to that law being signed into law. So now your favorite gun that meets some of this new criteria that he's not telling you about can't be carried, not only openly, but at all. In Florida, where we're free, remember? Fast forward to the marijuana and abortion issue that's up this year. Like I said, we'll do another episode on pot, with the exception of Pierre's pot, which we will get to in a minute. Abortion, and again, to be fair and very clear about this, I got to find the right link here. I had one of the tabs that I had dealt with. It dealt with the actual proposed amendment, Amendment 4, it's called. And I can't find that tab now. I must have kicked it out. But there's an agency called Florida's Agency for Healthcare Administration. Florida's Agency for Healthcare Administration. It's the Florida agency, the Florida government watchdog that monitors for you, the patient, the administration of your health insurance, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, Meta, whatever it is, but particularly Medicaid. They have the responsibility of regulating and making sure that everything's going well for you. They took it upon themselves to launch a page to their website that is right here. And there's these two buttons. The red one on the left, I'll be more descriptive for those on social audio and radio. The red one on the left is Florida Cares, about women and children. The one on the right is Florida Cares. Florida is protecting life. Let me show you what that is. This is the video that we saw a moment ago, courtesy of the Young Turks, was going to show you this as well. This is on, and that's what the one tab I have, that is a news story from Channel 2 in Orange County, WESH in Orange County did the story on the fact that this website that you're seeing on the screen now, or this page from their website that you're seeing on the screen now, is about Amendment 4 and alleges that it threatens women's safety. Keep in mind, Florida is one of the states that Kamala Harris refers to when she tells a story about women who have not been, how should I say this tactfully, women who died because they tried to get health care in the process of having a natural abortion called losing a baby. Not a chosen one, but a miscarriage. And now they're bleeding out. Yet, Florida is the one that's protecting women. The current Florida law protects women. So says the people who are keeping us free. Amendment 4 threatens women's safety. The first point says Amendment 4 threatens to expose women and children to health risks, which the Florida legislature has spent years working to mitigate. Current Florida law requires abortion providers to work within a framework designed to protect women from dangerous and unsanitary conditions. Okay, you know what? Yeah, there have probably been clinics that are no different than getting an abortion in a back alley. But it's 2024. I think it's time to allow for abortion within sane, safe regulations in place to make that happen. Here's the one that I absolutely love. The framework developed by the Florida government to regulate abortion in all, boldface, sets reasonable and common sense guardrails for medical professionals and their facilities. Sets reasonable and common sense guardrails. Says who? The people who are keeping us free and banning books and not allowing kids to be taken to wherever for brunch by their parents, by their adult parents that we're giving freedoms to. So says Ron DeSantis. Some of these laws and regulations include, now keep in mind, this is what is already on the books. Something that in most of these cases, I wouldn't have any problem with. If they're telling you that they're going to be taken away upon immediate implementation of Amendment 4. Physician requirements prohibits abortions from being performed at any time except by a physician as defined. You know what? If it was my girlfriend, my mom, my wife, my sister, my neighbor, who is in the process of actually having some sort of medical device being stuffed up inside to do some work, I would probably want a doctor to do that. Sorry, physician's assistants, but this is like that one step up that we need the big guy for, or gal. Licensing and sanitation. Restrict where abortions may be performed, as in not like a back alley where you're forcing them to go to. Impose sanitation standards for those facilities, also a good idea. And mandate annual agency inspections. No problem there either. And what we're going to see is that Amendment 4 isn't against these issues. It's against the next steps of these issues, which are coming. Admitting privileges requires physicians to perform abortions to have admitting privileges at a hospital within reasonable proximity. In other words, there's got to be a hospital nearby. The patient has to sign an agreement stating they are aware that there is a hospital nearby, such that if things don't go well, better levels of treatment are soon available. That's it. Also not a bad thing. Regulation of abortion procedure require appropriate use of general and local anesthesia, appropriate precautions such as establishment of intravenous access, and appropriate monitoring of vital signs. You know, if I was getting some procedure like that, which I've had, not an abortion, but I've had medical procedures, all those are in place. Happy about it. Thank you very much. Regulation of recovery and follow up. Require abortion clinics to provide a monitorization. They monitor your progress by medical professionals capable of providing basic cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, instructions regarding access to medical care for complications, and a post-abortion medical visit. That includes a medical exam and a review of the results of laboratory tests and a urine pregnancy test. So in other words, you got to come back to make sure everything went well and that they did it right. Also a good idea. Amendment 4 says, and this is just the one paragraph that they're trying to provide a certain argument against. Amendment 4 says, quote, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viably or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. In other words, they're saying doctors should be making the decision, not the government. No problem with that. This amendment does not change the legislature's constitutional authority to require notification to a parent or guardian before a minor has an abortion. I don't have a problem with that. If in my case, adopted daughter did something like that, or perhaps my adopted son and his girlfriend, who may be a minor, she's not, but I would want her parents, or I would, if I was the parent or guardian, I would want to know. I would want to be able to have that conversation myself, because remember, Ron DeSantis, you're giving authority and freedom to the parent. This is doing that. Here's the truth with a big red arrow. Make sure that's in the middle of your screen. The Florida legislature will lose the ability to protect basic common sense healthcare regulations due to these open-ended and arbitrary terms. Okay, so reword it. You see that the Florida legislature does have some authority already. This amendment does not change the legislature's constitutional authority to require notification to a parent or guardian before a minor has an abortion. We can also say this amendment does not change the legislature's legislative authority to require sanitary conditions and professional licensing of a medical doctor. Boom. Problem solved. You present that as a counter option. Instead of spending all this money on extra pages to a website that I couldn't find, by the way. I had to go to the TV news article that we showed earlier, not the one from the Young Turks, but the one from WESH, and click on the link they provided so I could find this. Existing Florida exceptions. This is the one I actually want to look up, because there's a lot of talk about these actually not being in place then and or anymore. Florida exceptions. Life of the mother. I just took part on a social audio room over the weekend where the NPR story that they discussed was about a couple in Washington, D.C., where all of the abortions and I forget what the one type is called, but it's later, and it's also done when a woman is miscarrying to make it a safe and precise and not permanent, but obviously permanent, but immediate and case closed type of miscarriage. Unlike what this woman in the story experienced. An option that she was given by her healthcare provider in DC was that you can do natural. Let your body continue with the miscarriage. You'll bleed that cell into a napkin, toilet, wherever, whenever. This woman did that and didn't stop bleeding. While she was driving with her husband on her way to the far right state of Ohio, where she almost died because they were afraid to perform this procedure for fear of violating Ohio law. Life of the mother. Risk of physical impairment. She was unable to walk for a while. Thank God she did actually survive this ordeal. She did black out during her second trip in the same morning to the ER, largely from loss of blood, of course, and the fact that she's essentially dying. Fetal abnormality. In this case, the baby was dead. There was no heartbeat for a while. Rape, incest, human trafficking. I mean, seriously, if that's the type of people you want to breed, we'll take a look at the other story where a 30 or 32-year-old father dropped his 10-year-old daughter on the side of the highway. Now, if he's having second thoughts of having a kid then, you know he had those same second thoughts 10 years ago. And mom wasn't even in the car, if that helps you. Now, clearly, at that age, adoption is obviously and hopefully the better option and the course of action taken by the state. But 11 years ago, maybe there was a different option available. So Florida says that the impact of Amendment 4 on the states: no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion. Again, they're taking so much of this. This is all there is. This is all there will ever be. I don't think those aiming to protect a woman's right to choose are leaving it intentionally so broad. When you listen to those people making some of these arguments, that's not what you get from them. They talk about Florida, the state of Florida talks about a reasonable decision. These reasonable decisions are made. No definition of viability and so on and so forth. It's all a bunch of reaching. It's all a bunch of the scare tactics that DeSantis says the left let's be clear who we're talking about here. This is yet another DeSantis right versus left and projection. Not just hypocrisy, but projection. DeSantis is a master of leveling some sort of pathetic scare tactic and making apparently enough voters twice, because he was just reelected 2 years ago, think that the other side, which is another attitude we seriously need to get rid of, that the other side is the bad guy. We got to stop with the tribalism and the other side isms. There's my own ism. All right, I got to take a break. When we come back, Pierre's Pot. I don't know if we're going to be able to hear from Marcella today. I know she's getting kids back in school and getting used to that. So if she checks in, awesome. She's always welcome. If not, we'll give her a much needed, well-deserved day off. Jane will be joining us in about 25 minutes. So I got to get through the rest of this, that, morning motivation, all of that when we come back. It's 99.1 WDJY, America One Radio, and the rest of the Mastiff Media Network. Oh, I just got a text from Marcella. There she is. And the rest of the Mastiff Media Network. We'll be back after this. Smell nasty. Do you want to freshen it up a little bit? Go to aromabypeter.com. Check out all of Peter's candles. It's what we burn here in Studio Yerg's. I'm burning right now leather scented candle. That's right, leather scented. So go to aromabypeter.com/Yerg's and check out his candles today.
I'm Jane Stahl, retired English teacher, and with my BFF, Susan Bebeck, we manage Studio B Fine Art Gallery in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. We showcase the art of hundreds of local artists, publish books of the poetry, prose, and art of local writers, offer classes, art parties, workshops, discussion groups, cater dinners. We've even hosted a wedding. And we're here to be the go-to place for friendship, learning, and fun in our community. Virtual tours of our exhibits are available right here on Yerg's Radio. Let us introduce you to some amazing art and artists.
Check out Jane Stahl and everyone at Studio B in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. Please visit our YouTube channel, Talk TV 24. How's your website doing? I'll tell you how mine's doing. It's awesome. Yergs.com is gotta be the best website for anybody in podcasting or any sort of broadcast solo journalist like me. How did I get that? Limit Break Digital. Limit Break Digital did my website with Yergs.com. They did YergerGroup.com. They take care of my marketing, my branding, and help me get the message out to you. Go to limitbreakdigital.com/Yergs for 10% off your next project. That's a $3,000 site, Yergs.com. And you can get 10% off that by just going to limitbreakdigital.com/Yergs today. Talk to Jay. That's my guy. We all got a guy, and Jay's mine. limitbreakdigital.com. Hey gang, it's Yergs. Right now, our country is about to embark on yet another controversial presidential election. I have an actual question, legitimate question, as a political scientist and historian by education. If you are a Trump supporter, I want to hear from you. I want to know what your appeal to Donald Trump is at this time. Please email me news, N-E-W-Z, at yergs.com. News, N-E-W-Z, at YERGZ.com. Thanks. Participants must be willing to provide their contact information, answer a series of questions, and then have their first name broadcast over the radio and social media relevant to Up the Middle. All right, gang. It's time for Pierre's Pot. Go on, you thinking where the graphics are right now? There we go. Today, we're going to reach out and thank Nuala, who I met over the weekend on Chatter, an app I'm trying to get a desktop version for. I know there's one in beta. I use this app. I was using it more frequently than right now, I'll be honest. But oh, she's messaging here. Give me 1 second. But brain fart. Sorry, Toto. I'm liking this one app. It's like Clubhouse, but okay, she's not on. But it's in. I was on it as part of the beta transition or beta. I just heard a beep. Where'd she go? Okay, yeah, we got her. I'll come back to Pierre's Pot. Let's talk with Mars. we'll do that before maybe before Jane and I finish, or after Jane and I finish. Hey there.
Hey. Well, who are you talking to?
What's that?
Who are you talking to?
Listeners.
What are you talking about?
I was talking about Nuala, this Mrs. Doubtfire of Chatter.
Okay.
Exactly what she sounds like. Lovely lady. She was on a room that my friend Dylan.
I know Nuala very well.
Do you really?
I do. I know her very well.
Very cool lady.
She's sweet.
And that was my Pierre's pot, my toast of the morning sauce
Mm-hmm.
in her direction. She's acknowledged her sounding, at least to us Americans, maybe not to a fellow Scot, but at least to us Americans, she sounds like Mrs. Doubtfire.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, she doesn't like the idea either, but she embraced it anyway. It was a good sport for Dylan and me and everybody else who really thought she sounded like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Dylan, from the blind community?
No, he's kind of a hippie in San Diego.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about. This is a friend of yours?
I know him through Chatter. That's all.
Yeah, I know Dylan.
But he stuck up for me pretty solid this past weekend.
Really? How come? What'd you do?
I jumped into one of Jonathan's rooms.
Jonathan Bing, okay.
And they're talking about Kamala versus Trump and Kamala versus Trump. And
I'm not listening to you.
I know.
I'm not listening. You know how I feel about that.
Quickly.
Okay.
And I'm hearing all this and I seeing that it was Jonathan's room and I didn't see right away that Dylan was there, but I said, look, I'm retired Secret Service agent, yada, yada, yada. You know that whole story.
Mm-hmm.
This one guy tries to call BS on me being an agent.
Wow.
Oh, I'm just reading your other message. Sorry.
Okay, so go on.
And Dylan jumped in and said, look, I know this guy. He really is an agent. He really is a retired agent. He's provided us some amazing information in the past. Why do you people, concentrate on trying to put people down and to disprove somebody?
Or instead of just sticking to the topic, right?
And say, okay, if I'm not who I say I am, I'll prove that myself.
Yeah.
I don't need your help.
Yeah, this is true. Okay.
And so, Dylan's been, I'm sure we probably got plenty of topics we may not both agree on, but that's why I like him is that he takes that approach civilly.
Okay.
And I'm for marijuana laws, the legalization and such. I'm not necessarily as for it as he is, but there's that.
You're still talking to your audience. You're not talking to me.
And whatever. So actually, do want to talk to you.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
I know what message you're talking about, where I highlighted you and others. Did that cause problems besides just you, or
no? Just leave that alone.
So people too.
Leave that alone until we're able to talk in private. You always blow up my spot. I swear to God, if I wanted to kill someone and ask you for your help, you would be the person to talk about it on the radio. Where do you want to bury the body, Mars? It's serious. No. Where's your loyalty? Come on, give me a fucking break, Ross.
That radio.
Oh, beep.
Yeah. We got that in 7 seconds, didn't we?
Oh no, I had jumped into the room and you were talking about something and I was trying to raise my hand to come up and nobody brought me up and I heard you talking and I was like, hey, what about me, Ross?
When was this on Chatter? It had to be on Chatter.
I haven't seen you on Chatter since the very beginning, since we were first onboarded. Which is what, July, June?
Before you came on, I was just telling them there was a period where, I wasn't as active for a while.
Are you back on there?
Yeah, I never left it. I just wasn't as active.
Well, no. When we take a break, we go away and then we come back. That's why I said, "Are you back on?"
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that.
so
The profile's
I
still the
don't.
same,
We
whatever.
like very different rooms. I do not like those large rooms. I do not like the clickbait rooms. I do not like the debate rooms. I do not like political rooms. I tend to stay away from all of that stuff. It makes me very uncomfortable. And I do not like large stages. I like this because I don't have to see anybody. Guess what's
Yeah.
going to happen next year here when I'm in front of all those people talking? I'm going to
You
have to
mean
take my
creative
glasses off so
one?
I don't see them.
Or
Creative Con. Creative Con.
yeah.
There we go. Creative Con.
Oh, is that what that? Ah, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Creative Con.
I
Um,
gotta, I gotta, I gotta get you comfortable with not mirroring your camera. So when you wear shirts like that,
all
it's
right,
actually
well, you can tell me
reads.
how to fix that later. And yeah, you tell me how to fix it later. It
Well,
just makes me more comfortable.
that's
I see I'm moving my right hand. There's my right hand. If I
exactly.
move my right hand and this one goes up, then I'm going to be like, what the hell? Because that
Yeah,
doesn't happen in a
that's
mirror.
the part that you have to get used to. But when it's mirrored, it's the same size as same
Yeah,
solid.
no, I like that. I like that. So
Got to wear a solid shirt instead of one that has writing on it.
give me a break.
I don't know how you would pronounce Dr. Pepper backwards. And what would that be? Pig Latin?
I read backwards, but so I could read it the way it's supposed to be.
But
So
so, how are the client base coming? Any more?
Um, I've had a few very interesting clients, really nice people. There was one that was so incredibly enlightened. All I could see were angels behind her.
Well,
It was a challenge to read her because they kept talking over me. And it just proved to me that there are people that I'm going to have challenges with. What?
do you think they're looking out for her though?
Of course
Like,
they are. This is her
looking out,
spiritual team, but they were
right?
all over her space. I couldn't even see behind her because they were covering up everything except her. But it was a nice conversation though. She was very uplifting. There were a couple of things I was able to warn her about. It's been really nice having all these new clients come in, and we're getting ready for Halloween. So we're making a banner to put up on my site, and um, it's also going to be put up on Gig Salad, and I'll give it to you. I do corporate parties, I do house parties, and last year I did a couple. I did a couple, yeah, I did a couple, and they were really interesting. I was able to read quite a few people at these 3-hour events. So
That's where I worry for you because I know what one does or can do as far as draining.
these are 5-minute readings, Ross. I actually
Yeah, but 5 minute readings for 3 hours.
Yeah. And I take breaks. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
one of the stipulations. I tell them I need food, I need water, and they have to provide this if I'm there. They also have to provide an area where I can go and sit for a couple of minutes so I can regroup. And I bring my sage and I cleanse myself and I come back. And usually I'm really good. I go on these missions. They're missions to me, and I go
yeah,
high energy because I cleanse myself before. And then when I get home, I cleanse myself and I sleep for hours.
yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. You get to meet lots of new people. Some of those people book with you later. And just to be in the environment of a festive occasion where people are wanting to come and sit down and get some insight to what's going on with them. I'm actually going to reach out to one of the ladies I worked with last year because she held a really nice party and I was able to take someone with me. She called him my bouncer.
Nice.
Yeah, he sat on the sofa in the room with me while I did them. He was away from me, but he listened. And at one point, there was a guy who would not leave. He kept coming in. And I said, listen, you have to wait your turn. I don't really need anyone to back me up like that,
Yeah.
but it was nice to have him just in case. So that's what we're doing. We're going to do, I'm preparing for the holiday parties starting in October. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So if
And
you want me for your corporate event, reach out.
yeah, I was going to say, I'll put that up. Got to kind of rearrange the screen here. I gotta put you in this folder too. So there's different like profiles on uh, Restream.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you and I have one where what everybody's about to see right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Marcella.com is in our profile,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not in the up the middle profile because Mars does not do politics.
I do
But
not do
you
politics.
do stop in on Mondays to say hello, and so
I do. I do.
I need to put that on this one too. So also, how is this going? Marcella
That's
underscore
just
Palooza.
that's just my Instagram page.
But that's also where you're doing the or telling.
Oh, you're talking about under the umbrella. So
Yeah,
we took a break. We were not summer, summer we're all either vacationing or working on things. And funny thing is, I reached out to them late last night and I said, guys, summer is over. The little one's back at school. I have some free time. I would really like to make this thing happen again because this is what's going to happen with Creative Con. We're going to take this over there and we're going to talk about what it's like to be a podcast host, a creator who is neurodivergent. So we're gonna get back on the ball with that. And then Luna's been talking about creating content for herself to be a podcast host. They're gonna start off really slow, she and Angelica, and maybe little episodes, and I'll probably send them to you so you can air them.
yeah. Because wasn't she? They had been in the planning stages of that for a while. Didn't they actually
Mm-hmm.
cut like one or two of them?
What's that?
Didn't they actually record one or two?
They've done a couple on TikTok. Here's the thing, though. We had a um, life-changing events happen in my home over the summer. You're privy
Yeah,
to that,
uh,
and it really set her back emotionally.
yeah.
So the only thing she could really focus on, and I got to tell you guys, I have probably the most self-aware 12-year-old that I know. I'm not going to say in the world, that I know. So she took all that time to regroup with herself, to really pour into herself, and to honor herself, and just to make herself feel better and understand that this has nothing to do with her, and this is all the challenges of the other party.
Has there been any reconnection of any sort with that other party?
Not at all. Not at all.
I think that's a good thing and kind of a bad thing at the same time
Why would you think it's a bad thing?
because I'm sure that you both have just like a lot of things to say,
I actually
perhaps
don't.
explain yourselves, and I know you of all people don't need to hear it.
I don't have anything to say. I listen, I give people the rope,
They
and
hang
if they hang
themselves. Oh,
themselves,
yeah, you didn't
you
even
can
have.
either hang yourself with it or you can tether yourself to something.
Yeah,
And I take responsibility for whatever I did that was not conducive to the relationship, to the healthy part of the relationship. I also have to honor myself in that I was not alone in this.
yeah.
And when the day came and he left, and I even then tried to salvage some sort of relationship, whether it be friendship or otherwise, and he was yelling at me, I said, I want you to let it all out. And he said, what? I said, please, whatever you're feeling, let it all out right now. And he said, you're not worth it. And I said, okay. I didn't
Well,
get
first of all,
angry.
for you, and secondly, wow,
What was I supposed to say, Russ? Listen, maybe when I was younger, I would have cried.
offered the opportunity to say, make me a punching bag. Let's do this. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I thought maybe we could talk about it. He could tell me why he was so angry and why he had been treating me the way he had for the last 2 months before he left. Basically treating me like I didn't exist and it was just him and the children. And then there were times,
That
when
long he was in New York,
on and off, because he would go back and forth.
right?
I'd be in bed sick and Luna would come check on me. And it got to the point where I would get up and I would go get something. And even feeling as ill as I was, get up, make coffee. Hey, would you like a coffee? He'd say yes or no. Hey, I'm going to make something to eat. Are you hungry? Yes or no. Do you want me to walk the dog or do you want me to go with you? Yes or no. Whatever it was always me. And he finally
So
said to me,
you're taking a dog for a walk that, if I remember this correctly, wasn't even your dog.
Not my dog.
While you're sick.
While I'm sick. He never let me do it on my own. I had done it a couple of times when he was out, but I walk the dog, and she's a powerhouse. She's an
Yeah.
Akita. Huge, huge dog. And the way she would pull on the harness, it was rough on me. But I would still do it. I had to get used to it. I thought we were going to get married, so I had to get used to that. And but I never got, never coming into the room where I was laying down and, hey, are you feeling okay? Can I get you something? Do you want to go get air? Nothing like that. And I finally came out one day and I sat here across from him, funny, same spot I'm in now. And I said, hey. And he's like, hey, what's up? And I said, why don't you check on me? I'm just curious. Why don't you check on me? And he didn't have an answer. And I said, I'm not in there because I'm trying to get your attention. I'm in there because I'm not well. But why don't you come in and see if I'm okay or if I need anything? Well, I thought maybe you just needed to rest. Okay. And
Yeah.
still, so, and then there were other factors, the
There's a
factor with the
certain
kid and
which I'm calling BS on that because
listen, Ross, he wanted a mother for his children. That was all he wanted. And when I couldn't accept the older boy, and yeah, shoot me, guys, the boy was toxic. He drained me so badly one day. I was having chest pains in my arm, my chin, my stomach, and I said, I have to go lay down. I don't feel well. And I remember telling Angelica, can you please check on me in an hour, just in case I don't get up?
yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, she came in and she was like, you've never asked me to do that. I said, I just don't feel well. And pushing Luna to the point where she wanted to harm herself, because she even said, she goes, when he's here, I feel like pulling my hair out in tufts. Like she said, she wanted to like grab handfuls and just pull it out. That was just
Oh,
the beginning. Imagine what would have happened later down the line, maybe actually harming herself. And I said, I can't have this in my home. And I even said at the time, if this means we don't stay together, we don't stay together. But I cannot sacrifice my daughter's well-being for
yeah.
your happiness. So he took him back, left him with his stepfather, and came back and said he didn't want the kid around. He kept saying, oh, I don't want him around. I can't stand him. I don't, your own child. And it always raised these red flags. And I would say, that's your son. I can't have him here, but that's your son. And the very last day, I actually haven't told you this, talked to one of my neighbors because she was staring. And you know how neighbors can be. So I walked over, I said, hi, how's it going? She's like, oh, good. How are you doing? I said, well, I just want to let you know that we're no longer together. She goes, oh, I know. What do you mean you know? She says, well, he told me. So now I'm going, hey, what do you mean he told you? When did he tell you that? The day he left. He walked out in tears, told her he could not stay with me because I didn't want his son. Drama.
And what the sucky part about that is that what he said in that moment is true.
Sure.
But do you think that's really the context in which he was delivering it? Like, was he mentioning the parts of it where his son is the problem?
Of course not. Of course he wasn't. He
He's
was just
because he never
basically
raised the kid right for the past 10 or whatever years.
God damn it, Ross. I really tried to discipline them.
Yeah.
The way I've disciplined my own children, the way I discipline Luna. Luna doesn't have a problem with it. She knows if she did wrong, she's got to make amends. And this is for her betterment, not for mine. When you grow up and you're an adult, if you want to be an asshole and it comes back to you, that's your fault for not taking, the message, the lessons, and being a better person. They just would not be better. And I would discipline, and he would tell me all the time, you're so mean. And I would have to ask my daughter, I need to sit down with you. I need you to be, and we have very frank conversations. Do you think that I'm a mean parent? She would look at me funny. She goes, no, Mom, you're so good to me. And I'd say, if ever I say anything that makes you uncomfortable or hurts your feelings, we need to talk about it. I'm the mom that will apologize. If I hurt you, I am so sorry. Please, let's talk about this, because I don't want there to be discord in this home. I don't want there to be hard feelings between us. And I wasn't like this when I was younger. So I've grown quite a bit, and I wanted just for those children to grow as well. But anytime I made a decision, he would want to argue in front of them. And I would be like, oh my God, I can't do it. It was just too much to put them through it. I would tell them, leave the room. He would say, no, they should stay and hear this. I said, no, they shouldn't.
No.
They should not. This is not
Not, no.
appropriate. So Luna would take the initiative and get up and leave. And she would say, I don't want any part of this. I'm a kid.
Yeah, but you know what else, though?
What's that?
It's not like you're living in a 10-bedroom house
No. 3
where everybody's
bedrooms.
got some place to go.
No. That's why I would hide in my bedroom. I'd hide in my bedroom. They were always out here. Angelica would hide in her bedroom. It was a lot. And then constantly bragging about his giant home in Canada that he was leaving for me, because he would tell me all the time, I'm doing this for you. And I would say, no, you're not. You're doing this for you.
Yeah, and like and the kids.
No, he was doing it for him.
Kind of sort of him.
Because leaving his son behind was for him. It wasn't for me. And he would tell people when he was here, he's living his dream, being in New York so he could be a stand-up comedian. One of my cousins called him out. She's like, I thought you were here for her. Yeah. So relationships come, relationships go, they die, they live, whatever. I just have to honor me, my family. I have to remember who we are.
I just realized something. I need to text Jane.
Yeah, how is Miss Jane?
You're going to find out. I've got to, before, Restream just did this thing with the user experience. And, that's not what I want to do. Restream just did this thing with the user experience. And now every time we do a broadcast, I've got to send you a brand new invite every time.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm like, why? I got to pull up that. And because this is a Windows machine.
I think it works out better, though, because if we have a guest one week, we don't want them tapping into the next week if they're not supposed to be on camera.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You know, I could block somebody if they're going to be like one of those guests, but no, yeah, that it's certainly a possibility.
So I've got a sick kiddo today. She's homesick today.
Oh yeah. What's
it's all sinus. It always happens the first, second or third week of school. It starts up and she gets a fever, and then it goes away within a couple of days and she's fine. But it's seasonal.
So
I think we just switched seasons, right?
Emailed. So
no dead airspace.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's Friday we picked up 4 more terrestrial radio stations.
Oof. Okay.
So of course I was all psyched about that. I was up from like 7 a.m. getting ready for it.
Wow.
Now these, because they're on a network,
they
have other programs that they run.
Okay.
Our show starts at 11, but our show with them doesn't start till 11:07 because they have like new stuff that they have to do before they pick up. And so I only pay for 53 minutes as opposed to 60. And as a result, I get promos throughout the week for my show.
Okay.
And so 10:59, the world falls apart. I'm about to go live in a minute. 7 minutes after that, I'm about to go live again. Blake and I get to talking. I look at the clock that's on I have this bigger clock on my desktop for this reason, for purposes of managing the show. And I look and I watch it turn 11:08. Like, on the air, I'm going. Somebody that would always laugh at that is this young lady. Welcome.
God. Hey, Jane.
Hey, how are you two?
Awesome. How are you?
Giggling.
Excellent. All kinds of things going on here in Boyertown. It's really been a fun and busy couple of weeks. So
yeah, you had like one of the, was it the Oktoberfest in September?
Yes. Oktoberfest was last weekend.
Yeah.
and it was magnificent and very successful. This week, not in Boyertown, but right up the street in Ole, was the Ole Fair, which of
Yep.
course is a very popular event around here. But in the past couple of weeks, Boyertown opened an ice cream parlor, and coming up next weekend is a troop train event on, in the rail yard. So it's just going to be a very busy time, and I'm already planning for next summer's theme show for Studio B and artists and writers and community members and so forth. So it's just a very
Clearly you're
exciting
not
time.
retired
It
yet.
doesn't quit.
Yeah. And clearly you're not retiring yet.
Well, yeah, I don't see a window for that yet. So,
Yeah.
but I've considered it. I mean, I think I may have said this in a previous episode, so I'll just summarize. But I considered for various reasons, maybe maybe it's time to be inspired away. Maybe it's time to
You
quit Bear
mentioned about the
Fever.
possibilities of cutting back. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself? Watch
Yeah.
baseball games or football games and watch TV? Nah, I don't think so. So anyway, for the present, and for the present, I'm still, super involved in all kinds of things. So it's still fun. And I just need to set some boundaries now and then and escape now and then to refresh my spirit. But I had the best time yesterday, I have to tell you. I spent the afternoon floating in my pool. And then and reading magazines. And after I got out of that, there were lots and lots of leaves, of course, on my pool deck and in my pool. And so I spent about an hour sweeping leaves. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, it was so relaxing just to be able to do that menial task. I had a lovely afternoon. The sunshine was brilliant. So anyway, today's kind of cloudy. So
I
it's
had
a
let
different
my
mood.
yard go in a way that I'm not happy. So the process of getting it back has been rewarding. Seeing 3-foot tall leaves no longer, or 3-foot tall weeds no longer there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our garden, my backyard is in a fall mode for sure. And Paul laughs at me, but I'm always really embarrassed because when my friend Donna comes over, because when Donna comes, her yard, there's not a weed anywhere, and my backyard is more like the woods. And there are
Yeah.
leaves and twigs and dead flowers and all that kind of stuff. But they tell me that I should not worry about them because it provides food and shelter for insects and birds and chipmunks and squirrels all winter long. So I'm kind of trying to be more accepting of the
If
season.
weeds weren't necessary, Earth would look like heaven instead of heaven looking like heaven.
Anyway, so there we go. But I had it, Onyx, do you want me to talk about this? I suggested this, pardon me, in a message to you yesterday, but I had the
Yeah.
most lovely end of last week unexpectedly. One of my classmates from the class of 65, 60 years ago. Do you believe that? Anyway, one of my classmates came to town. He's a veterinarian in Oklahoma. And he was inspired to come back to Boyertown for a visit. And he comes back regularly, I think. But he has a whole fan base here in Boyertown. And he was inspired to schedule a visit to visit his friends, and I think some relatives, maybe even some relatives who were estranged, because he lost 3 of his friends in Oklahoma. And I think it triggered a need for him to reconnect with people who were important to him. So anyway, he had this trip planned. And while I did not hear from
Let
him.
me interrupt you just one second.
Okay. Sorry.
Mars needs to run, so we'll
Okay.
everybody
Bye.
go to marcella.com, MARCCELLA, schedule your booking. I've got, my buddy still raving about, her abilities.
Andrew is a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
2 C's, 2 L's. Schedule your booking with Mars today, and we'll see her again next week. You and I need to talk this week.
Yeah, can you call me today?
Yeah, I can call you when
Awesome.
Jay and I are done here today.
All right. I will see you guys later. Take care.
Okay. See you there. All right.
Me
Back
too.
to our veterinarian. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so his fans, one of his fans, another classmate, connected with me and said, "Jane, you need Boogie's coming to town for the weekend." And he said, you really do a nice job with your podcast and you really do a nice job with articles for the Expression. Could you please schedule something with him? Because it would be great. It will be great." And so, I knew him in high school, but I didn't really know him. I knew him to be a super jock, three sport standout. And I knew that a lot of my classmates were his friends, that they really loved him, but I really didn't know him at all. And so I said, sure, I'll do what I can. And I texted Boogie and said, let's make a date. Your fans want to hear more about you on my podcast and in the Expression newsletter. Let's get together and make a date and record a podcast. So I didn't hear from him, but I knew he was going to be at the O's. You know the Orioles, right, Ross? Yeah.
Of course.
I knew he was going to be at the O's on Thursday night
Version
with a bunch of his
Cheers.
friends. Go ahead.
The Boyertown version of Cheers.
There you go. That's exactly right. Anyway, we knew he was going to be there on Thursday night with a bunch of his friends. So I showed up to meet with him face to face and say, look, I'm going to be in big trouble with your fans if I am not able to secure a podcast recording with you. Long story short, he came on Friday with his best friend, Peanut, whose real name is Doug David Heiser. Anyway, they came to the studio.
I think I interact with Peanut on Facebook rather frequently. Do
I don't know.
I think his political leanings are more similar to you and me.
Oh.
Versus Mark Burfitt or Val
Chris
Deischer
Jewell, or Chris
some of these
Jewell.
more
Yep.
right-leaning friends and neighbors of Boyertown.
Very good. But anyway, they came to the studio for a podcast episode. We had a lovely time. And as I told him after the fact and in a text message, next time he comes to town, it was really nice meeting him really for the first time during the podcast and getting to know him. And I will probably be part of his welcoming committee the next time he comes to Boyertown, because he was very charming. I mean, seriously charming. And, he makes people feel, he's interested in people, and he seems sincerely interested in people, which is not always the case. And his friends say that he's just very humble, and very intelligent. He's made a really good living for himself as a veterinarian in Oklahoma after 46 years, I believe he said. But they worried about him when he was in high school because he was kind of directionless. He lost his father early and didn't really have any male mentors. Some of his coaches stepped in, some of the folks from classes that before him, who fellows who were a little bit older than he. Jack Lignelli, for example, he mentioned during the podcast as being someone who was instrumental to him in the fact that, Jack said, hey, buddy, you got to get it together. You've got a lot going for you, but you're not using it. Get it together. And apparently in the military, Boogie explained, he had someone, an instructor in one of his classes, say to him, hey, you better learn this stuff or you're not going anywhere. And it kicked him into a different gear and made a huge difference in his life. So again, It was a really moving podcast in many, many ways. And like I said, I got to know him really for the first time, and that was really kind of special as well. So that was my fun, unexpected, one of those unexpected random happenings, that really are inspiring. So there.
Yeah, that's the purpose of the podcast.
Yes,
when
it
does
is.
that one drop?
I beg this coming Friday. It'll be October the 27th. And again, it's available on your favorite podcast platform, including Spotify and Apple and Google and Castbox and a bunch of others. So
You're certain about this coming Friday?
Yes, October
Or
the 27th. Yep. Mhm.
September.
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Yes.
it's
I'm
on September.
sorry.
Yeah.
September the 27th. I'm already booking October, so
Yeah, well, you know what? I wish it was October 27th because we'd be essentially a week away from.
I know. I know. Are we getting tired of this whole campaign season?
I'm ready to prove myself right.
Oh god, I hope you are.
Um,
But, you know,
Matt
what I
and
saw.
I had a conversation on Friday.
Okay.
Blake had to go get his kid or something, so he had to leave the show early, the episode early on Friday. And
Mhm.
Blake and I, or Matt and I, were just Matt, who is the Democrat out of the two. I asked him what he thought and what his constituents were saying, or his potential constituents were saying post Biden's dropout.
Mhm.
Because before that, he was saying that he's at like he's calling people on the phone and he's going door to door and so on. And they're saying, I love what you're doing, but I'm just worried about Biden. And he was saying, well, then I need you to vote for me so that if in fact Biden loses, which to be clear, none of us want, but in case he does, we've got somebody keeping the other guy in check,
Mhm.
as opposed to my opponent getting in, who is an endorsed candidate by the other guy.
The old man.
Yeah, the current old man.
Mhm.
And now, this, as you're seeing probably throughout the media, this renewed energy throughout the Democratic Party and throughout the Democratic tickets. Trump's having the same issue that 2 months ago
Mhm.
Biden was having.
Yeah, in fact, I was just on Facebook before I connected with you, and there was a YouTube on there that suggested he's really entered his own insanity. And
Oh,
one of the I know this is clickbait. I know it's clickbait, but one of the YouTubes said something some guy asserts that he had to be on amphetamines for the last debate. So,
I been thinking that actually. Um, I mean, they were, first of all, as much as they're never going to admit it, ever, not even when they get their asses handed to them in November. And I don't even call them the Republican Party anymore because they're not.
no, no.
And in realization, I don't think they ever were.
Mm.
I identify them, those who are left in the Republican Party, as MAGA because
And I
Lindsey
call
Graham.
and I call them maggots.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Um, I do. I don't like to because I'm trying to get away from the name calling
I know, I'm
on
sorry.
the road. But I've been doing that for 8 years. It doesn't work.
I know.
It's sad you've got to beat them at their own game.
Yes. Yeah.
But the MAGA Lindsey Graham, I can never remember his name. The guy I call Beaker from the Muppets, um, the one with the wide eyes that goes into the staring contest with space.
Yeah, yeah. I
McConnell, Mitch McConnell,
Oh,
because he has
yeah.
no chin.
Yeah.
He has no chin and he has wide eyes from those glasses. He looks like Beaker from the Muppets.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to put a visual together, an overlay, so I can put the two up together on the screen.
And they often compare him to a turtle too. So,
But they're not Republicans anymore. And I just, the projection that these people do is fascinating. And in fact, I've been using that word. As much as I don't like what they're doing, I find that it wins over. So, and like, I don't dislike Val Deisher, Mark Burfitt. I don't care one way or another. But there are good people that still support this asshat.
Mhm.
I think the reasons that we have left are because of pride.
Mm-hmm.
They know it.
Mm-hmm. They have to.
They know he lost. They're not that stupid. And that's what's left is you either have the pride that's bugging you, and you can't admit that he lost in 2020, that he is responsible for January 6th,
Mm-hmm.
that he's been lying about 95% of the stuff he says,
Mm-hmm.
or you are that stupid. That's all that's left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that it's okay for him to walk up to a woman and grab them, that's not okay.
Mm-hmm. That should have been the end of his campaign. It really should have. And it should have been a hint to us about what was coming.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I know a guy. I don't know if he was okay with me mentioning it, because when he told me this, I didn't have a radio show. But I know a guy that worked with me during my development of the hospitality side of the Yerger Group. Well-known expert in hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
You may have seen him on TV. He worked for Donald Trump in one of the New York properties earlier in his career. He and another coworker cried. This is an Italian guy, macho,
Whoa.
veteran, yada, yada, yada.
Whoa.
He and another coworker cried on election night because they knew what the country was in for.
Wow.
And so if he's strong enough to tell me that story, there's other people need to, because it's like it's a bad thing for you when you admit this, because just saying, you know what, I've been hoodwinked.
Mm-hmm.
I've been lied to. Because remember, according to court records, and as much as he wants to deny it and deny it and deny it, the facts that the rest of the world consider just that, he is indeed a professional liar.
Mm-hmm.
He is a professional fraud. That's why Trump University ain't here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Trump steaks aren't here anymore.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's incomprehensible, and we've been saying that for years. It's incomprehensible
I
that
had used the word.
they are only maybe 5 points away. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Colin
What
Jost did that
hell?
at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He's going through all these things
yeah.
about Trump.
Colin Jost. Yes.
And they're tied.
Right. It's just amazing. Yeah.
I said that with regards to what is MAGA and what is Trumpism, that I was fascinated by it. The followers' willingness to call following him, regardless of what he does, patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
That they're okay. There's people who have said this on camera. They're okay while they're standing there wearing red, white, and blue clothing. They're okay with him being a dictator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe that's what the country needs. Right.
This country needs a dictator.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. This is exactly what the one guy said.
Yep.
Couldn't say why.
No.
But when I've, on more than one occasion have used the word fascinating, that was the exact words Kamala Harris used quite recently to describe whatever is left of the MAGA movement and whatever was in the first place of the MAGA movement. And it's horrible, but it's fascinating. And I'm like, I said that.
Wow.
Now, damn it, people, will you finally listen to me?
Speaking of listening to you, let's do a
Yeah.
little promotion here. You've added some people to your network.
Well, I've found I've added. Yeah, actually. First of all, I don't know that we talked about this because I'm forgetting when exactly they came. I think it was 2 weeks ago, so we could have talked about it last week. But the week that it actually came out, you and I had already done our Monday show because it wasn't until later in the week that I got.
Exactly. Yep.
The Nielsen ratings have come out for Atlanta.
Whoa.
So with the terrestrial, the Atlanta airwaves, the FM station, 99.1 WDJY, and with their internet rebroadcast, every radio station is also on the internet today. We have roughly between 26 and 27,000 people listening to us right now.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Both Sides Now.
Exactly.
And while we don't often.
Middle, you're seeing on the schedule it's up the middle, which it still is.
Okay.
That's my daily show.
Okay.
When hour number 2 of the Monday show, Jane and I get together because this is when we would record our episodes for Up the Middle, which, by the way, I finally have a bunch edited. They're all coming. Oh, God. I didn't do anything on Saturday.
Good for you.
I wanted to, but I'm like, I slept in because for whatever reason, I could not sleep Friday night. I slept in because I didn't have to get up anyway, finally, for once. I sleep in. I go grocery shopping. I think I cleaned some of the house or did laundry. I come in here to turn the computer on. It's 9:30 at night.
Whoa.
I'm like, what the hell am I going to do now? I can just do, because one of the things I'm trying to still find things to self-educate on. I can just go sit in the living room with the dogs and get on YouTube and do that. So I turned around and walked out.
Good for
The
you.
computer was not on at all on Saturday.
Wow.
So, but the other thing, let's go back to Friday of last week. We added 4 terrestrial stations, and that network's 1 internet station to the Mastiff Media Network. And that gives us now the entire Tampa Bay.
Wow. Very good.
I don't know if this will mean as much to you as far as where, but we are as far north as Brooksville in Spring Hill, Florida. That's right. You used to come down here right frequently.
I visited my cousin when she owned a home in Brooksville. So, yeah, I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
Brooksville, that's our northern boundary currently.
Yep. And the southern?
And as far south as Sarasota.
No kidding. Fantastic.
Everything in between.
That's fantastic.
That is our Monday show that we had. We're only on those stations 1 day a week because to get off 4 was a bit pricey. But I wanted to have at least that amount where we're all encompassing to include also WWPR, which is also only on a Friday right now.
Very good. Very good.
So, and that goes as far east as Winter Haven and almost to the western edge of Orlando.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Which, by the way, their estimation at the station for all those 4 frequencies, 4 stations, 2 AM and 2 FM, we're exposed to 5.5 million people. We should be starting out with roughly another 25 to 30,000 per show.
Yeah. Good.
So, yeah. And this week we'll start ad campaigns on Google Ads, and also Spotify for those zip codes talking about the show and its political discussion and so on, so that we get listeners from those areas, especially the more conservative and or liberal. I want to talk to everybody. That's what makes this show so unique. Both sides now and up the middle. What makes both of these shows so unique is the wide range that we can still make it relevant to our audience.
Yeah, and we want to hear from people
Yeah.
about their sides, so that we understand where they're coming from and why they feel and believe and think the way they do, and encourage folks to message us here.
Yeah, absolutely. And call. We still got some time, I think. Yeah. Wow. We still got 29 minutes.
Yes,
Nice.
we do. Yes, we do.
So 1-888-88 Yergs. If you're not driving, if you're not in the middle of a meeting or whatever, give us a call and
because
tell us why
we
you
don't
still support
always
them.
we don't understand why folks still support the current old man, as Ross has termed him. So it would be an education for us and maybe helpful to the country at large, just to have a handle on what it is, what's the motivation, what's the intention that that is attractive to folks, because I don't get it at all.
And that's what it was. That's what was tough for me, was everything I've experienced. I forget. I think it was in an email to this one executive I'm trying to reach out to. But everything I've experienced, to include 2 illegal investigations into my sexuality during the Trump administration, and not necessarily as a result of him saying, go investigate that Yerger guy, so much as it is him creating the atmosphere of hate, which ultimately really is the other reason people still support the guy, in that he's made hate of people who are different from us.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, I saw on, of all places, I was watching Paul had Fox News on this morning, and Patricia Heaton, do you remember her from Everybody Loves Raymond?
Yeah. That was the wife.
Yes, she was the wife, and she has begun, she has begun a new group. It's 07C, October 7th committee or something. I forget what the C stands for, to support Jews. And what she has experienced is that Jewish people that she knows have been vandalized, of course, and their mezuzahs, your mezuzah, my mezuzah, whatever. It's a something that Jews hang in their doorway, I believe. It's part of their religious tradition, that people have been destroying them. And so she is, has established this commission or this committee or something that is having folks donate to her cause to support the Jews in Israel, because she's so disturbed by this. I'm sorry, I don't have the the right.
I found it. A
the right verbiage, but what is it?
A mezuzah, MEZUZAH.
And she's part of her campaign is your mezuzah, whatever.
Yep.
My mezuzah. Yeah. Trying to link everybody together, that we are unified people and we should be supporting one another is the point.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
I thought it was great that she was on Fox News this morning.
It protects the Jewish household.
Yes.
From evil spirits.
Yes.
What does that sound like to you? That's a hex sign.
Yes.
A Pennsylvania Dutch hex sign. Same thing.
Yeah. It's the cross.
Yeah. But remember that on the barns?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Like the peacock and whatever else they draw that
Digital finks.
that was for protection
Mm-hmm.
and well wishes for like crops and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that was a fascinating segment this morning, and I was delighted that she was on Fox News about it. Because, of course, listening to what's his name, Robinson in North Carolina.
Oh, there's another one.
Go there.
Seriously, there's another one. And Matt's opponent in Ohio is the guy I was mentioning earlier. That is when he was saying about, vote for me even if you can't vote for Joe, or think he's the lesser of two evils. He is sponsored or endorsed by Trump.
By Trump, right?
His wife, soon to be ex-wife, is the daughter of the Republican candidate for Senate in Ohio, who's fortunately losing to the incumbent, the Democratic incumbent. But earlier this summer, there was this article about how suddenly, boom, she's up and out of the house and moved
Whoa.
into a different place. And the stories came out about his domestic violence and previous relationships.
Aha.
And so now here's two MAGA Republicans who are now going to be at odds with each other
Mm-hmm.
because the one that the House of Representatives guy is at odds with is the daughter of his senatorial counterpart.
Yeah, it's so sad. Here's the guy Trump calls the what? Martin Luther King on steroids.
Who hates Martin Luther King?
Who hates Martin Luther King and, is reviving the whole Nazi playbook.
And that's with the projection about how, and the denial about how, no, we're not following Hitler. You're following Hitler.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Kamala Harris went in front of a bunch of Jews and said, if I don't win, it's your fault. That's what Kamala Harris said. Oh, wait. No, that was Trump.
No, that was Trump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm
Oh, by the way. Yeah.
But I'm reminded of the Jon Stewart bit from that he did right after the State of the Union.
Okay.
When Biden just kicked ass.
Yep.
But there was all the responses that Trump was giving on social media, at speeches, and so on. And that was when he made the famous line, I only want to be a dictator for one day.
One day. Right.
And, when I think about the projection and, hating on Jews at a conference focusing on anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say what Jon Stewart said in that video after he made the dictator comment. Just so you know,
that's how it
that
starts.
is how it starts.
Right.
Hating on Jews now, just verbally,
mm-hmm.
just as a hypothesis, just as a joke. That is how it started.
Mm-hmm.
That is literally how it started.
Exactly.
The Holocaust.
Yep. Yeah.
And these asshats sat there, some of them, not all of them, and clapped for him.
Yep.
But what I think is just a huge disservice by the media is how they could have said, not everybody was clapping.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. That thing fills up the entire Washington, D.C. Convention Center. not just one of the convention rooms where we can put a couple thousand people in, the entire 3 or 4 square block building. It goes from Massachusetts Avenue like 3 or 4 blocks north and is an entire block wide. And that's filled with the Jewish community for that conference. And by the way, it's a week long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, presidential candidates come to speak, sitting presidents come to speak, vice president speaks at that, other notable members from the Jewish community, et cetera, et cetera. And in fact, Netanyahu and whoever is the prime minister as often comes to it from Israel. Yeah, full. I don't know where I was going with that now anymore, but whatever.
Well, you were unhappy with the media that did not report that not everybody clapped. That's what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. It's this event was the size of one of those large convention rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, these are facilities that have car shows, all of which is indoors. They're that big. And so you're going to hear, like they do for Pamela,
Mm-hmm.
when the place goes nuts.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think is shooting him in the foot badly, like shooting himself in the foot with a shotgun. He's also doing the indoor arena events.
Mm-hmm.
And they're empty.
Well, my daughter sent me raw footage, 35 minutes of raw footage from a Trump rally that focused on everybody leaving because they were bored. So I sat and watched the entire thing.
Let me ask you something about that video, because it might be the same one I saw. In the very beginning, could you tell that it was the event in Wildwood, New Jersey, at the beach? It was an outdoor event.
It was an outdoor event, yes.
That's Wildwood, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Jane, it was 5 months ago.
Oh my God, really?
Now do you see why 4 months ago? It was like April, maybe early May. But we're just talking about it now. Now do you see why I say do not trust polls done by the media?
Mm-hmm.
They could have broken that story half a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Now, why didn't they?
Because they want to keep it close, or appear it to be close, so they can keep themselves relevant. I forget who it was. Somebody else just said the same thing. I think the guy last Tuesday, I was on a show called Pushing the Limits. It's a show just like ours. This guy who does it in Vegas. And he had me on, not because they were both broadcasters and podcasters or whatever. He had me on as a retired Secret Service agent. And then he gave me a shot to plug the show too. But he was saying the same thing. He does not put any worth in polls. Mm-hmm. When they, like Blake from our Friday show will say, oh, but the polls were accurate about this one and that one and whatever else. They weren't accurate about the red tide in 2022. Mm-hmm. That was at best a pink splash. Mm-hmm. They weren't accurate about 2018. Mm-hmm. And they weren't accurate. Those where they are accurate, predicting a president or whatever, they're not really that accurate until the end.
Right.
When it matters for their own reputation.
Right.
Nobody's going to go back 6 months to a year.
I have mixed feelings about all that, because in some ways it's really kind of good to suggest that things are, close as they are, that we did not show that video 7 months ago or whatever, because I think it's really important.
It would have caused complacency.
For people to realize that they got to get their buns to the polls. Yeah. And so magnifying how close things are hopefully motivates people to get to the polls and vote when it really and only counts, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know it's difficult. It's really difficult. Like, I forget who I was talking about the other day. It's just something relative to community business, and my colleague was talking about how somebody was saying, negative things about some other person in the organization. And I said, well, what we got to do, what people have to do is not give those messages oxygen. You want to listen to them and don't pay attention to them, because then they kind of wilt and go away. That is the hope, at any rate. But the more attention you pay to it, the more you say, wait a minute, let's fix this, or let me explain. It gives the whole
Yeah.
thing oxygen. And I know that the media has that concern, like, should we be talking about this because it magnifies its importance? Should we ignore it? But yet it's kind of important to bring it up, and it may motivate people to get their rear ends to the polls. So I reckon, I'm torn between reporting some of this stuff and not reporting some of this stuff. I understand the conflict.
Yeah.
How's that? That's all I
Yeah.
can say. Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
And that's happened in elections. I don't think so much Hillary.
Well, my favorite story comes from Andy Rooney. Back in the day, during World War II, when there was this huge event, this huge bombing, you know, and the newspapers didn't know how to report it at that particular time. Do we report all the negativity? Do we report all the destruction? And what Andy Rooney suggested at the time was that they report on the heroes, the people who stepped forward and did good things, the people who stepped forward and were helpful, because that inspires and motivates others. And I guess, that's the essence of what I've always done. I know there's a lot of negative in the world. I know there's a lot of trouble in the world, a lot of destruction, a lot of stupid people, a lot of all that kind of stuff. But I think
Positive talk in a negative world.
you got it. Positive talk in a negative world, because hopefully it inspires more of that. I don't know that it does, but that's where I've planted myself.
We grew to 26,000 and change in Atlanta.
Yay. So you got my bundle of podcast
Yes,
recordings from Be Inspired. And I thought you'd be really happy with the one that was 58 minutes long.
I saw that. Yeah.
Because you don't have to put two together to make the hour. So
I didn't I saw them.
Christine,
I didn't download them all yet, but
well, Christina, the one that's so long, I couldn't help it. I had so many questions for her. It was a psychic medium by the
yeah.
name of Christina Leeson. And I had so many questions for her. It was for me, it was a fascinating hour long. And she and I are meeting again next week to record another episode about her
Cool.
book. That's about protecting your home from ghosts, about, getting them locked out if they haunt your space. So she has some suggestions for people. And those are suggestions that she kept repeating to her clients over many years. And finally, she said, I got to write a book about this, because it'll save me a lot of time and a lot
Yeah.
of energy saying the same thing over and over again. So I'm looking forward to allowing her to share those kinds of things to further promote her book, but more than that, to help people who are struggling with people who are haunting their homes and haunting their lives, because she has some specific suggestions about how to help yourself. Lock down your house and chase away. Let the spirits move on to the next dimension. It's fascinating stuff, I think. Anyway.
Yeah. And I love the doubters who excuse me a second. I love the doubters who, because they've not experienced that, It therefore doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Oh, there's no such thing.
Ex-
That's that
exactly.
that's again something that I credit towards the far right of what I call the Bible thumpers.
Mm-hmm.
I tell a story about how when I lived with mom and dad in college, we had a house fire that I should have been, and for all intents and purposes, was killed in. The smoke and the heat blew right into my bedroom, and the assistant fire chief from Earl Township said, "There's no reason for you to be here right now."
Wow.
It wasn't until I went back to college later that summer when I had my first nightmare about it. And everything was just like it was in the nightmare, with the exception of two things. Or, excuse me, everything in the nightmare was the same as it was in real life, with the exception of two things.
Mm-hmm.
One being when I stepped out of my room and looked to my left down the steps and saw my brother screaming, "There's a fire." In the nightmare, he was burning. The other one,
Mm.
now my reaction to that, as I have the nightmare, it's a horrible experience. It scares you, it upsets you while you're sleeping, et cetera, et cetera. But as I see that, I go, but wait a minute, that didn't happen. Ryan's fine. But it's still a nightmare. It still scares me, but I still go, Ryan's fine. There's that whole there's that whole disbelief
Mm-hmm.
because you already know that Ryan didn't burn on those steps. You're just not smart enough to go, oh, damn it, this is a nightmare. I can just go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But before that was how I got out of bed. If Paul decides to make burgers for you or whatever, and you get the night off for making dinner, and you fall asleep in the easy chair, and he comes to wake you and says, honey, burgers are ready, and he puts his hand on your shoulder and just, shakes you a little bit to wake you up. I felt that in the moment that I woke up in bed that night. And when I did, there was a man standing aside of my bed in, white robes with some sort of like sash tying it, long brown hair like I got right now, beard and mustache. And as both of us being of Christian upbringings, you can by now think that I'm probably describing Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact is, I don't know. I never met the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see him in churches all the time. And your church, the Jesus there, looks different from the one that I grew up in. And from another church downtown, or the Catholic church over right off of 562. None of them have the same Jesus. It's like Santa Claus.
Right.
Nobody can get this right.
Mm-hmm.
So I presume it was Jesus, but maybe he was busy. He said, hey, Muhammad, I got this other thing to deal with. Can you go wake up Yerger? Maybe it was Muhammad. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, somebody was standing right aside of my bed getting my ass up at 2 or 3 or whatever in the morning. And I did one of those eye shake things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who the hell is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
But by then I was already, for all intents and purposes, essentially wide awake. Not wide awake, but you know what I'm saying? I could tell something was going on. And now I guess he knew I was going to make it out of the house. When I tell that story, all of my libtard friends who don't practice a religious faith are fascinated and at least believe that story for me, that I really experienced that dream, and so on and so forth. But the other thing about it is my own realization that when I saw my brother burning in the dream, I had that, no, that's not right. That's not what happened. I don't get that about the brown haired guy in a white robe waking me up. I have that feeling like, yeah, I remember this part,
Yeah.
even though I don't remember that part.
Well, I too. And I think we shared this. Go ahead.
Well, just wrap this part up. The liberals, many of whom are faith based, Christian, whatever, Muslim, Jewish, whatever. But even the ones who are like, no, I'm a little trendy and progressive. I don't do that whole church thing.
Mm,
They still at least believe that I had that experience
mm.
through my dream and wherever else. The doubters are the Bible thumpers.
Well,
You just saw a white towel hanging across the room, which, by the way, I went back to the room, stood in that spot where my bed had been, and looked across the room in that direction. There was nothing remotely close to resembling anything. That there was a clothes tree with a white towel hanging from it. No,
mm-hmm.
there was nothing like that that could have been anything to put that seed in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they said, no, you just, it's just part of your dream and whatever. That's nice. We're glad you're here, but it's calling bullshit.
Well, I've had experiences like that myself. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then we got time. I want to get you out too. You don't believe in ghosts, but you worship one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a great meme that came across my Facebook page this week, and it generated some really heavy duty proselytizing from someone who attracted somebody who was willing to argue with him. Anyway, the meme goes like this: witches call it spells, Christians call it prayer, spiritualists call it manifestation, atheists call it the placebo effect, scientists call it quantum physics. Everyone's arguing over its, no one's denying its existence. The energy. Yeah. It's the energy. It's the energy. So anyway, I like that meme.
If it gets cut off, we got about a minute left. We might be losing. We'll be losing 99.1 WDJY. We'll wrap this up on Yerg's Radio. Go to Yerg's, YERGZ, radio.com and listen in on the rest of it. That way I don't have to rush Jane in. I want to hear some of the experiences that she's got. Meanwhile, you can get us both news, NEWZ, at yergs.com, or, there we go, studio BBB, 3Bs.org. That's the art studio that Jane manages in our hometown of Boyertown, Pennsylvania. Okay. Haven't lost anybody yet, so go ahead.
Well, I was just going to end our show. I'm Jane Stahl.
Oh, okay. And I'm Yergs.
And this is Both Sides Now.
We'll see you all next week. I'll see you all tomorrow.
Sounds good. Have a good week, everybody.
Now, do you want to actually tell any part of that story?
Well,
do you want to say next week?
We can. I have to run soon. Okay. But yeah, I can share with you and anybody else who happens to be listening. When Paul and I were first married and moved to Colorado, I remember waking up in the middle of the night one night, and there was a gentleman standing in our bedroom. And I can remember, pinching myself. Is this real? Trying to wake Paul up kind of by pinching him, and he wasn't having any of it. But this gentleman was in the room kind of looking around. And I can remember, just saying, am I really awake? and all of a sudden he just vanished. And, I just think that was probably Paul's dad coming to check on his son because he had left he had left the room when he was 45 and Paul was like 15 years old. But I think he came to visit us. And then, speaking of fires, we had a fire here in my home. And it was traumatic, of course.
Yeah.
But after everything settled down, we went out to my parents' home. They were in Florida at the time, and we were going to stay at their place while our place got cleaned up and all that kind of thing. And just being so traumatized. But when I walked into my parents' home, there was this warmth, just a feeling of warmth that enveloped me. And the feelings of anxiety and panic and trauma and all that just kind of melted away. It was like that warmth told me, just the spirit of it, the energy of it told me, you're going to be okay. It's all right. And so I'll never forget that. It was just a lovely
Yeah.
moment, a feeling of warmth. The sun kind of streamed through the window at that point, but it's the feeling of warmth that went from the top of my head to my toes that told me I was going to be okay. So that's what I have to report mostly.
Yeah.
And then the dreams, and I know I talked about these on a previous episode, and then the dreams I had after my father died. He
Yeah.
came, I had 3 separate dreams, and I think I told you that he and my mother saw him after he died. He just appeared in the doorway in his army uniform, and he looked young and healthy. And she too felt, in that same room I just described, she too felt, I'm going to be okay. He's okay wherever he is. But my dreams told me my father was, I heard his voice as I was approaching the house because we always went there for Sunday brunch. I heard his voice and I could feel again in my own heart, oh my God, he's there. He's okay. And then when I entered the home in another dream, I saw him in the kitchen cooking cheese and eggs and bacon like he always did on a Sunday morning. And he turned around and looked at me with this huge smile on his face, and he was healthy and energetic. And I was so happy. And I know that if he ever had any doubt, and I have stories about that too, but if he ever had any doubt how much I loved him, he knew at that moment, because he would have been able to feel my heart sing.
Yeah.
Okay. In seeing him. And I think I told you in a previous episode that a full month after he died, I'd find coins in my classroom. I'd be, fixing the desks for the next group of kids that came in, and there were coins on the floor. I mean, not just 1 or 2, but handfuls of them. When I'd walk to my car in the parking lot for a full month after he died, there were coins along the way, in the hallway, at the school. And then when I'd leave and in the parking lot, coins. And my father and I had an argument one time where he was so eager for me to become a lawyer because being a teacher, I wouldn't make enough money. And I would argue with him that all he was concerned about was money, that he wanted to create a dynasty of some kind. So we had words about that when I was a teenager, thinking about going into teaching. And he was not terribly happy about it. But then I learned just maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, probably that's more accurate because COVID was 4 years ago. Anyway,
Yeah.
about 10 years ago, my brother had exactly the same experience after my father died, of finding piles of money. So we are both certain that my father was involved in all of that.
Did your
So
brother
those are
have some sort of similar experience with him in life that they
my
discussed
brother,
with
my
you?
brother and he did not have a happy relationship. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. My father wanted him to be more of an athlete, to be more macho, and my brother's not built like that. His feminine energy is all over the place. He's just a really sweet, compassionate, empathic, sensitive guy, and that was not necessarily the model my father envisioned for his son.
or even society now, or especially
Exactly.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, those are my experiences, my ghostly experiences, my spiritual experiences, as it were. But I'm a believer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's above my pay grade to know what happens after all of us leave the room, as it were.
We
It's
got
above
to
my pay
sometimes
grade,
talk about,
and I'm
we
fine
got
with
to
that.
sometimes talk about those 5 dimensions.
Say again.
We got to sometimes talk about those 5 dimensions. Remember when you mentioned that before?
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and these ghosts live in between the dimensions, and they haven't been able to move to the next one. Tina tries to help people, help the spirits in their house be able to do is move along to the next dimension. So we'll talk
Yeah,
more about that maybe after I talk to
definitely.
Christina. Okay.
Yeah,
But I gotta run. I
definitely.
got an appointment in 20 minutes. So I must leave you now, and I'll catch you
Yeah,
next
same
week.
here. I got to call Mars, and I got some editing to do
Yeah, you do.
and some
Okay. Have a good
catching up.
week.
All right.
All right.
All right. You too.
Take care.
All right,
Bye bye.
everybody. That's it. We're now finished. And uh, yeah, I
Do
got
we sign off
to.
again?
Yeah, well, we can. Yeah.
I'm Jane Stahl,
And I'm Yergs.
and this is Both Sides Now. Or should
All
be
right.
you.
See you again next week, everybody. And I will see you all
Okay.
tomorrow.
All righty.
There's Jane's info on the screen. You know how you can get me. Just come back tomorrow and bitch at me then. We got stuff to do. I got to hit a bathroom. I've been sitting here for 2 hours. So
Oh,
time to go, literally.
literally. Take care. Bye.
All right. See you again.